Onion Cycles podcast is about thought-provoking, emotion-evoking, action-driven, step-by-step guidance to explore the unique, glorious, and wonderful ocean of your being. Because healing is a multi-layered process of getting to know oneself. Become the self-empowered empiric researcher by discovering the unique layers of your existence. With your host, Nadine Alma, welcome to the Holistic Healing Hub. Welcome to the Onion Cycles podcast. Hello and a warm welcome, my beloved fellow healing onions. I'm so happy you decided to tune in again, spend another week, spend another episode with me. I welcome you to this place of vulnerability, to this space that is sacred in discovering ourselves, discovering who we are, discovering together this crazy journey that is life. I have a disclaimer that you might already have heard in the background. That's the ocean. I come to you live from the coast of Norway. I'm far up north, and I do hope this lovely sound of waves and seagulls brings a little magic, adds a little magic to these moments that we spend together. And speaking of moments, this is exactly what we're about today in this podcast episode. Hi, welcome to Story 34, Episode 35, The Now. I myself don't know how you fared in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of months. I myself went through a lot of turmoil and ups and downs, and when I started this new kind of life, this van life that I currently find myself exploring, I was absolutely overwhelmed, and I was driving like the devil had a whip behind me. And then this podcast episode was inspired by an Instagram account that I stumbled across. I will actually want to name 3 Instagram accounts that contributed to the research and the information that I convey in this episode. First, we have Amy Christine Psychic Medium in a podcast episode she did with Asha Gray. Then we have DRBC Therapy and Growing with Saz. So if you want to check out any of those, feel free to do so after listening to this episode. I think they are magnificent and I could take away a lot from them, and it actually helped me through a pretty tough night. I want to paraphrase what Asha Gray told Amy Christine in her podcast, because this is what inspired me to do this episode about the present. He said, the faster you're moving, the more you're in fear. The more you're in fear, the more you're thinking about yourself, and the more you're thinking about yourself, the less compassion and kindness you have for others. There is no love in hurrying, stress. The more you're hurrying, the more you're stressing, the more are you missing the magic. Your DNA expires in 80 to 120 years, and while you're here on this earth, in this body, you got nowhere to go. So chill out and freaking love your moments. So he said that, and I was completely taken and aback, because that is exactly what I did. For the past couple of weeks, I did nothing else but drive fast and stay in my fear. I was absolutely held down by my existential dread and fear. Anxiety crept in, and I couldn't even enjoy being on the road. And when I stumbled about this podcast episode where he said that, I felt like he spoke to me and something within me resonated with it. From there, it was a short distance to noting down my thoughts on what he said and creating a podcast episode from it. So, welcome. It's about the present moment, it's about the now, something we've discussed before, I know. I thought, well, there's nothing as important as the now. So, in order to make its importance felt, let's do a whole episode about it. My first thought is that the way he talked about thinking about yourself. So you're moving fast, you're hurrying, you're stressed, you're in fear, and you start thinking about yourself. You are stuck in your head, and you forget basically what you learned about yourself because you suddenly find yourself being in old ways again. There is no trust, there's no presence, and there's just anxiety about the future, or maybe there is depression and angst, panic, something that holds you back and that makes your brain go, well, we've been here before, we know how to deal with that. Let's just do the same pattern that we did every time before. Every time this happened before, let's do that again. And suddenly, you can't use your toolbox anymore. You can't use your books, you can't use your toolbox. You sort of feel like everything that you've thought you knew and everything that you relied upon to guide you, to help you through, doesn't have meaning anymore. And that is a very scary place to be in, or it is for me personally. So, what helped me through this time was actually opening up for one of the first times in my life to other people, to my friends. I was weak in my energy levels, I was weak in my spirit, and I reached out to a friend, and she guided me through a process that is nothing else but feeling. She guided me into those feelings. She provided the safe space that I needed to go into myself and see where those feelings come from. When I look at them more intensified, what they reveal about themselves. And she also gave me that space to just allow them to be. Like, not thinking about why they're there, how they came to be, or how to get rid of them, but just be in them, be with them, regardless of how painful it is. And what she then was able to make me see during this process was that I actually didn't see the bigger picture behind my so called problems or hardships or challenges. I didn't see behind any of it. All I could see was the immediate in front of me, and didn't really have anything to do with that immediate in front of me. It had all to do with the underlying existential threat that I experienced from not wanting or not feeling like a good fit anymore for the current profession that I'm doing, the project that I'm taking out. And it didn't solve this hardship, it didn't solve the problem or the issue, but drawing awareness to it helped me come to terms within this past week of acknowledging that I need to steps into a direction where I can let go of that project. So my first epiphany coming out of that Instagram reel that I saw about slowing down, being in the present, and needing to go nowhere really. It's just all in my head, all in my mind. Was born this new comprehension for where the issue was lying. It wasn't my life, it wasn't van life, it wasn't the driving, it wasn't other people, it wasn't the country, it was nothing but my fear of acknowledging the fact that I don't like what I do anymore, that I want to do something else, and that I don't feel like I'm a good fit for this project. So I don't need to decide anything anyway. I was also very much in my head about needing to make a decision when in fact I could just like wait and be in the now and let things happen, let things transpire. But I didn't do that. So, coming out of that, feeling the emotions and acknowledging where they came from and what they're telling me, I was able to take a first step into digesting that new information. I haven't done a step yet, but I will do. And I was able to think about something that felt good to me personally to approach. Now, the second thing that came to mind is what the Instagram account Growing with says shared with the world. And that was an exercise that is actually also on the worksheet for this week's episode. For all of you new out there, I do a worksheet that contains all the notes of each episode of what we discuss, what we talk about. And then on this worksheet, there is also exercises to be explored by you. Because as we always say, this podcast is about not just knowing, not just thinking and feeling, it's about doing. It goes in lines with the quote, as I think, so I feel, so I act. And these exercises are very personal and very much an individual task to do for each and every one who feels called to do them, because this is a path towards knowing yourself, and only you can do those exercises and only you can know yourself. So if you want to download those worksheets that go with each episode, they are available for free on my website www.wonderfinder.org. This week's worksheet contains the exercise that Growing with says shared with us. And I did that exercise myself and I was moved to tears by it. And it actually gave me a new foundation and a new base on which to from which to regard my life and my decisions and where I want to move towards going from here. And this is about imagining a safe place and then seeing a house that is to the right of that safe place, knocking and finding that the little kid opens the door and realizing that that little kid is actually you, and that kid leads you into a big room where a lot of different ages, different versions of you are in. There are versions that still are occupied with your ex, that are still occupied with a dream come true or working towards a dream, broken-hearted versions, traveling versions, best friend versions of you of all ages. And all of them are so eager to see you and excited and happy and welcome you in, welcome you to the table, seated in a circle on the floor, or whatever feels good to you, whatever comes up in your imagination. And you tell them all about how you're dealing with life at the moment. And then you ask the question, so who of us is the happiest? Because I'm curious, like, I'm not sure if I'm the happiest right now. Who is the happiest? And then your 60-year-old or your 70-year-old or even your 80-year-old self comes to you and says, look, you're exactly where you're meant to be. You'll be the happiest of us all. Welcome home. We're all here for you whenever you need us. We'll be there for you. Welcome home. And then the child self comes again and says, thank you. Thank you for holding on. Thank you for standing strong, for being bold. Thank you for everything. And I came out of that exercise with tears and the realization that it is actually within me, everything is within me, and it lies in my hands on how to deal with whatever presents itself to me in this life. So the second stage, after acknowledging that I wasn't being the best version, I wasn't being what I wanted to be, reaching out to a friend and doing an exercise that rebuilt the pillars within myself to find that foundation again of who are you? Who do you want to be? Why is it so hard? Is it hard really? What are you trying to prove? To whom are you proving it? Where do you really want to be? How do you really want to feel? How do you want this life to feel? Right? I came across the third Instagram, TRBC therapy, and that was absolutely mind blowing. It reminded me of my youth, really, before I had every shyness and every restraint to just move my body. I lost that along the way at some point, or it was just about looking good on the dance floor. And then she said, just you need to do a dance break. You need to do a nervous system reset because first it interrupts the pattern and it helps you shift your perspectives. Second, you need to encourage the expression and have an emotional release, and you need to promote connection and co-regulation with your dance partner. If you don't have a dance partner, be your own dance partner. The effect will be the same. It will be a nervous system reset. Now, it invites silliness. It invites playfulness. It makes these huge challenges seem so much smaller. And in that moment, you're just free and you're getting into your body. You're like so intrinsically connected to your body that it gets out of your head and back into movement, back into motion. The energy starts to flow again. You break stress patterns again. You engage your vestibular system, which is basically challenging your balance, and that gets you out of your head as well. And then it boosts endorphins. It's improving your mood instantly, and it shifts from worries to what's this episode called? The now. So, especially the boosts, the endorphins one was what made me smile because, as you remember, last week we were talking about how there's a new to-do list that is the only to-do list we all need to do, which is the new 4 a day. So we said dopamine is completing a task, eating good food, or getting enough sleep, and oxytocin is playing with animals and giving a compliment, being of service, holding hands, or cuddling. And then serotonin, be nature, meditation, mindfulness, get some sun. And then, like in this dance break exercise, endorphins. It's exercise, it's laughing, it's creating for the sake of creating, it's being in your body and moving it. That is actually the three things that sort of put me on the way again of reflecting on my life and realizing that it's all in my hands, that once more I have been neglecting and just focusing on the expectations for my life rather than on the feeling I get while creating this life. I feel like I probably was in some sort of one way road with no return to the base of my existence. And I thought that this week's episode should be dedicated, needs to be dedicated to how I found myself going back onto the main road, the motorway, if you want, on really being the creator and really making changes and not being stuck in fear and just trying to live my life the way I want to live my life. And that most certainly and definitely is not in fear. And I wanted to share that with you. I hope that you could take away something from this episode. I hope that it sparked something within you. If you're interested in my resources, please check down below. I have them written out so you can check them out for yourselves. And with that said, my beloved fellow healing onions, I am so happy and so humbled that you're here with me on this journey. I am very happy that you decided to tune in again this week. I hope that this episode brought you back to the now, to the present moment. This is a gift being here, being present, and I appreciate it a lot that you decide to spend your energy and your time with me on this podcast episodes. And with all of that said, I hope that during the next week you're able to stay in the now, in the present a little bit more. Maybe you want to share about it, talk about it. As we always say, sharing is caring. Maybe someone out there needs to read your comment at exactly that moment to make them not feel alone in their struggle, in their endurance, in their perseverance. And until next time, my beloved fellow healing onions.